In our headlines on this Wednesday, August 26th here in South Korea. Iran says it will not fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz until the U.S. restores the previous memorandum of understanding and fully meets its obligations, underscoring Tehran's demand for firm U.S. commitment before normalizing passage through the vital waterway. Meanwhile, Canada announces counter tariffs on American goods ranging between 15 and 50% to take effect on September 8th, escalating the trade war between the historically close allies. And findings for June show the number of newborns hitting a 7-year high here in South Korea, maintaining an upward momentum that began some 24 months ago as the number of newlyweds also rose. Iran has tied the full reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to the U.S., fully honoring its commitments while announcing an agreement with Oman for a temporary corridor across the critical waterway. Our An Sung-jin tells us what this means.
Iran and Oman have agreed to open a temporary shipping route through the Strait of Hormuz. In a joint statement issued on Tuesday, the two countries said they would establish a temporary maritime corridor across the strategic waterway and work together to clear mines. This comes after Iranian and Omani foreign ministers held a meeting in Tehran. The two pledged to continue working-level negotiations on a permanent shipping route to foster a long-term system for managing maritime traffic. Also on Tuesday, Iran's deputy foreign minister told its state media IRIB that it will not take any steps to reopen the Strait of Hormuz unless the United States first adheres to a previous MOU. He also put forth 3 additional conditions: an end to fighting on all fronts, an end to the blockade, and a resolution to the situation in Yemen. The deputy minister also dismissed U.S. claims that mines had been cleared from the strait. These comments came after U.S. President Donald Trump stated on the same day through a social media post that the U.S. Navy had reported that all mines in the international waters of the Strait of Hormuz had been removed or detonated. Trump in the same post also noted that Iran has been notified that any vessel laying new mines would be immediately destroyed. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has told several allied foreign ministers that Washington will take a more cautious approach toward Iran by avoiding military action against Tehran for the time being, according to Axios citing U.S. officials. Meanwhile, Russia's state-run news agency RIA Novosti reported that Washington and Tehran had reached a ceasefire agreement that included free navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. The report, citing Pakistani military and Iranian security sources, said that the agreement could be announced within days, but provided no details and did not independently verify the claims. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Also on the international front, Canada is imposing retaliatory tariffs of up to 50% on roughly 700 American products. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Canada is hitting back at the United States with a new round of retaliatory tariffs, escalating the trade fight between the two countries. Ottawa announced Tuesday that it will impose tariffs on about $20 billion worth of American goods, matching Washington's latest duties dollar for dollar. The Canadian counter tariffs take effect on September 8th and will cover around 700 products with rates of 15, 25, and 50%.
Today I'm announcing that Canada will match the United States tariffs dollar for dollar, rate for rate. Effective September 8, Canada will impose counter tariffs of up to 15, 25, or 50% on $27.6 billion in imports from the United States of America. For each product, our tariff would match the American tariff on the same type of Canadian good.
The move comes after U.S. President Donald Trump's new 50% tariffs on about $20 billion worth of Canadian imports took effect on Saturday, following the collapse of trade talks. Canada says it will place 50% tariffs on products including steel, aluminum, furniture, and clothing. Cheese, appliances, and some seafood will face 25% duties, while electronics and tools will be hit with 15% tariffs. The measures cover goods accounting for nearly 4.5% of Canada's total imports from the United States. Canadian Industry Minister Melanie Joly says the tariffs are designed mainly to protect Canadian businesses and workers, while also increasing political pressure on Washington ahead of the November 3rd U.S. midterm elections. The Canadian government is also rolling out additional support for companies and workers affected by the widening trade dispute. Meanwhile, President Trump added another layer to the tensions Tuesday, saying his administration is considering changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America. In a post on Truth Social on Tuesday, Trump said the United States is giving serious consideration to the change because it does not expect to do much business with Ontario in the future. The comment echoes Trump's previous move to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea's new Trade Minister Park Chung-sung has called for a united government response to key trade challenges. Speaking at a government trade meeting on this Wednesday, Park said U.S. trade issues should remain a top priority amid growing international uncertainty and urged ministries to work in close coordination. The trade chief also called for expansions into new markets and the strengthening of South Korea's global presence. Park was appointed last Friday to replace Yo Han-gu, who was recently dismissed. On the diplomatic front, North Korea's Kim Jong-un has yet to respond to his American counterpart Donald Trump's olive branch, while here in South Korea, the term denuclearization continues to drive rampant speculation about a possible shift in policy. Our Kim Do-yeon explains.
North Korea remains silent to U.S. President Donald Trump's messages. Its leader Kim Jong-un has focused on internal affairs in the latest event where the press covered his message on Wednesday morning, a ruling party Politburo meeting. Despite continuous overtures and social media posts from President Trump and the scaling down of South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises, Pyongyang has maintained a steadfast silence. Against this backdrop, the recent phone talks between South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Hyun and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio drew sharp attention. The customary term, complete denuclearization, was noticeably absent from the diplomatic press release. The omission immediately sparked concerns that Washington might be lowering the bar, potentially signaling tolerance for North Korea's nuclear status or settling for an early freeze-only deal. Seoul's foreign ministry moved quickly to push back against such speculation.
South Korea and the U.S. consistently uphold their shared goal of peace, stability, and denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. Both allies are pursuing North Korea policy in close coordination, as discussed in the latest foreign minister's call.
Experts also view the omission not as a surrender of principles, but as a calculated maneuver to draw Pyongyang back to the negotiating table through a phased, three-stage approach of freeze, reduction, and dismantlement.
With President Trump putting effort into a U.S.-North Korea summit, setting the right atmosphere between the South Korean and U.S. foreign ministers by adjusting how the North Korean denuclearization issue is discussed, is a strategic approach. The U.S. message toward North Korea must remain consistent so we can anticipate whether Pyongyang will come to the negotiating table.
Analysts point out that if the allies want to bring North Korea forward, consistent messaging and clear reciprocal roadmaps will be crucial, ensuring that an initial freeze actually leads to complete denuclearization rather than a permanent compromise. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also, in related news, a former Trump NSC chief of staff is urging Seoul and Washington to urgently step up high-level dialogue ahead of any interaction with Pyongyang. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young covers his remarks.
U.S. President Donald Trump should meet President Lee Jae-myung before sitting down again with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and send Secretary of State Marco Rubio to Seoul immediately. That's according to the Vice Chairman of the America First Policy Institute and former White House National Security Council Chief of Staff Fred Fleitz speaking with Arirang News.
Secretary Rubio needs to go to South Korea immediately and speak with the South Korean government to understand the situation and the success in our bilateral relations and how we can cooperate in dealing with North Korea.
In a recent article, Fleitz set out steps Washington should take before re-engaging Pyongyang. This follows Trump's surprise decision to cut the Uji Freedom Shield joint exercise from 11 days to 5 and reduce field training, raising concern in Seoul and Washington over alliance coordination.
The president's decision to partially roll back the joint exercises was a surprise. But it's worth noting that the U.S. has done this before on at least 3 occasions, the George H.W. Bush, the Clinton, and the Trump administration, while negotiations with North Korea were underway. The challenge with North Korea is much more difficult than during Trump's first term because of this Kim-Putin relationship. So, there's a lot to do here, and I think consultations with our allies is the most important first step.
Flight's article also proposes appointing a dedicated North Korea envoy and strengthening coordination with Japan and other regional partners. He also raised the need to clear obstacles to cooperation in nuclear-powered submarines, civilian uranium enrichment, and spent fuel reprocessing.
We also have to send our secretaries of commerce and energy to South Korea because, we have some issues in trade and our energy negotiations. I think President Trump has to talk to the U.S. government to find out why aren't we doing more to get these relationships, getting these agreements through.
Addressing Trump's criticism of Seoul's non-participation in the Iran war, flights contrasted South Korea's response with European allies that denied Washington access to bases.
South Korea under President Lee has an extraordinary record in cooperating with the United States on security and trade matters. And whatever concerns the president has with South Korea not getting involved in the war in Iran, and many of our allies didn't get involved, this extraordinary record, I think, covers South Korea quite well.
Amid concerns over alliance strains, Foreign Minister Cho Hyun and Secretary Rubio in a phone call on Monday agreed to coordinate closely on North Korea, tariffs, investments and security, and meet soon for further talks. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Findings for the month of June show the number of newborns here in South Korea maintaining its remarkable momentum. Our picture covers the latest findings.
The number of births in South Korea rose for a 24th straight month in June, according to data released by the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Wednesday. Birth counts for June, the second quarter, and the first half of the year all hit 7-year highs, and June's year-on-year growth rate was the fastest since record-keeping began in 1981. The country recorded 23,111 babies born in June, up 15.6% from a year earlier. That's nearly 5,000 more babies than the same month just 2 years ago. This year has posted a double-digit year-on-year gain, from January's 11.9% jump to March's 19.5% surge, the sharpest of the year so far. Marriages also climbed 14% to 21,075 cases in June, extending a recovery that's been inconsistent month to month, with June now marking the strongest month of the first half of the year. An official from the Ministry of Data and Statistics attributed the rebound to a steady rise in marriages since the country moved past the pandemic in May 2023 and a growing population of women in their 30s. In the second quarter, the birth rate for women aged 30 to 34 rose to 82.1 per thousand women, up 11 points from a year earlier, which is the highest for that age group since 2019. For women 35 to 39, the rate climbed to 60.2, up 10.7, the best showing since 2015. But for women 24 and under, the birth rate slipped below the 2.0 mark for the first time since this data series began in 2015. The second quarter fertility rate, the average number of children a woman is expected to have in her lifetime, rose to 0.88, the highest for a second quarter since 2019. Asked whether the annual fertility rate could climb back above the 0.9 this year, the official was cautious, noting that in both 2024 and 2025, births came in higher in the second half of the year than the first. If that pattern repeats, the official said, they could have reached that mark, but it's still too early to say for sure. Still, the broader population picture remains a difficult one, as deaths continue to outnumber births, leaving the country's natural population change at negative 4,683 for the month. Baek Ju-hee, Arirang News.
Also, on the local front, business sentiment has climbed to its highest level in 4 years, bolstered by chip exports and greater seasonal consumption. Our economics correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has details.
Backed by semiconductor exports and increased consumption during the summer vacation season, Korea's overall corporate sentiment reached its highest level in nearly 4 years. According to the Bank of Korea's latest data released on Wednesday, the Composite Business Sentiment Index, or CBSI, for all industries stood at 99.6, up 1.1 points from the previous month. That marks the highest level since September 2022, when the index stood at 102, a 3-year and 11-month high. The CBSI is a composite indicator based on several major business sentiment indexes. With the long-term average set at 100, a reading above 100 indicates optimism, while below 100 indicates pessimism. The latest survey was conducted from August 10th to 18th, with responses from more than 3,100 companies. By sector, the manufacturing CBSI rose 0.6 points from the previous month to 103.8, largely driven by the semiconductor boom. The index has risen for 5 consecutive months since April, reaching its highest level since June 2022, when it stood at 107.1. Business sentiment improved among small and medium-sized enterprises, rising 2.2 points to 99.8, its highest level since June 2023. Meanwhile, it deteriorated among large corporations, falling 1.6 points to 103.7. According to an official at the central bank, this is partly due to a temporary seasonal effect, as large companies tend to have longer summer vacation periods than smaller companies. What's notable is the non-manufacturing CBSI that rose 1.5 points to 96.7, reversing a 2-month decline that began in May. An official said the improvement was largely driven by increased demand for transportation and passenger services during the summer vacation season, as well as a recovery in the broadcasting, film, and broader services industries. For next month, businesses expect sentiment to improve further, with the CBSI outlook for September rising 3.1 points from the previous month's outlook. Manufacturing by 2 points to 102.5, while the non-manufacturing outlook up 3.9 points to 97.6. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, a roll of kimbap costing almost 4,000 Korean won is a new normal here in South Korea as rising food prices push household budgets to a 31-year high. Our Park Jun-han was out on the streets.
For people looking to grab something quick to eat on the go, kimbap is known for being filling and, most importantly, cheap.
But that reputation is changing. According to the Korea Consumer Agency, the average price of a single roll of kimbap in Seoul hit 3,869 won, or around $2.80 in July. That is a 6.8% jump from a year earlier, easily outpacing the country's inflation rate. So, when compared to Korea's minimum wage 10,321, the price of kimbap isn't really that low. Another popular food, samgyetang, a traditional chicken soup, is now over 18,000 won a bowl, almost double the nation's minimum hourly wage. This so-called lunchflation is being felt by workers.
Yeouido is known for having some of the highest lunch prices in Korea, so I think we feel the impact more than most people. When I need to have lunch, I try to eat at the company cafeteria as much as possible. And when buying something, I usually search for the lowest price I can find.
As food prices continue to climb, the purchasing power of cash in our wallets is steadily shrinking. And this leads to an increase in the share of household spending on food. In 2025, the proportion of household spending on food went up to 30.3%, crossing the 30% mark for the first time in 31 years. An expert pointed to 2 factors: the rise in prices relative to wages and consumers spending more on desserts and drinks.
Rising prices are largely driven by various external factors, such as higher raw material costs, so there will continue to be pressure on food prices. Since people cannot cut food spending indefinitely, they may have to eat out less often or choose cheaper options.
While it is impossible to control external factors, the government said it will continue expanding direct price discount programs for agricultural products and releasing government stockpiles to ease the burden on consumers. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
Korea's research university KAIST has a new leader at its helm, and he believes a proactive and philosophical approach to education based on AI will be key to taking talent beyond the boundaries of the campus to the broader community and corporate arena. Our Kim Jun-ong files this report.
Strong fundamentals. That's the vision laid out by KAIST President Bae Chung-sik, who assumed this position early this month. Korea's leading science and technology institute is to redesign its classrooms with artificial intelligence at the core to gear up for the post-AI era. For Bae, it starts by redefining education.
The days of simply passing on knowledge through lectures are over. KAIST will lead educational reform through AX, or AI-driven transformation. We'll group our courses into 3 levels of AI use, from learning without AI to designing AI itself. Those who develop and govern AI must be highly self-directed. Only those who are far more proactive and philosophical than before will now take the lead.
Competition for top talent is going global. Bae aims to make KAIST a magnet for top talent from abroad, supported by Korea's strong industrial base.
Strong industries naturally elevate the institutions built around them. If we pair our nation's industrial strength with an AI-focused education system, I believe international students will follow. Programs like dual degrees could make us even more attractive.
Countries worldwide are also eyeing closer cooperation with Korea's academic talent.
I'm very impressed by the seriousness and ambition of the Korean students and institutions. KAIST, I think, is a very important example of this. They have developed cooperation with a number of Swedish institutions. We're looking at fields like AI and science diplomacy over research collaboration, and also looking at institutional partnerships.
Bae says Korea's ambition to become the #1 country for AI is within reach, and KAIST is ready to answer the call by taking a leading role.
Korea is well positioned in areas like sovereign AI and physical AI, and the government is ready to push and support that drive. KAIST will keep pace with that momentum, and I'm confident we're ready for the task. Deepening research ties with industry will also be one of my priorities.
Under new leadership, KAIST is betting on strong fundamentals to nurture talent in an age of AI transformation and global tech rivalry. Kim Jun-ong, Arirang News, Daejeon.
Today, the sky stayed mostly cloudy, so we barely saw any sunshine. But with high humidity, it felt especially muggy and uncomfortable. Across the Chungcheong province and areas farther south, heatwave warnings remain in effect in many places. Tropical night advisories are also in effect in many parts of the country, including Seoul. Looking ahead to tomorrow, rain and showers will move in. Along the south coastal areas of Gyeongsang-namdo province, rainfall could total 80 millimeters or more. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 25 degrees Celsius, Daejeon 24 and Busan 26 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 31 degrees, while both Daegu and Gwangju will soar to 33 degrees. And by the weekend, rain will spread across the country. The good news is, with the rain coming in, the heat should finally ease up a bit. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.